everyone, and welcome to the What the Fuck Show. How are we all this evening?
Awesome.
Tonight we're going to be talking a bit about gun control and or other ways of achieving a safer and more dynamic society, perhaps is a way to describe that.
Stupid control.
AKA
stupid control.
Stop Americans from hurting each other.
But it's not just Americans; it's other countries as well. With us tonight, we have Harmonica Man. Hey, dude, how are you doing? I love that beret. It looks awesome.
Absolutely.
We have the wonderful Purple Rhymes with Orange.
Hello.
We've got Strike's niece, Catherine. Hey.
Hello.
And we've got the lovely Kitty.
Aw, you always call me lovely.
Because you are lovely.
I adore you.
Well, I adore you too. if only I was single and you were single.
Yeah, no, I've been chugging caffeine all day, so I should be good.
Awake.
Send some my way.
Oh, wow. Only way to go.
Yeah, only way to go. Okay, we got a few people. We've got Jeannie and Mark, Ian Davenport, and a few others in chat. We've got 10 people in chat. I don't know who they all are because they haven't all spoken. Plus ourselves, obviously. So, hi to everybody who's actually made it here tonight. I realise there's an awful lot of shows on at the moment. So this is going to be one of those ones which we don't get as big a following, but that's okay. These things happen. Hopefully people will watch it later. This came about as because of a stream we had earlier this week that Kitty and Purple were part of. Where we were just basically shooting the shit. We were going through a huge range of topics. And we got onto gun control at one point, and we decided that this is a subject that we probably should cover in a bit more detail. So I don't know, Kitty, would you like to get us going?
Well, speaking as an American living in a now red state, because I honestly don't consider Florida to be a swing state any longer. I mean, our state legislature is solidly red, and we've gone red.
And your governor's an idiot.
Oh God! Don't even get me started. Like, we went from
corrupt. They need to lock him up.
We went from corrupt to just, Trump bootlicker. Like I almost want Governor Voldemort back. Like, Rick Scott, now he's a senator, but we called him Voldemort because that's kind of what he looks like. The bald hair, the weird nose, like absolutely diabolically evil and not caring at all about like.
So he's Frosty people? The Snowman.
Yeah, no.
Frosty the Republican.
When I was in high school, let's just say I wrote a jingle to that tune, and it was a drug jingle about a sniffy dust dealer. Let's call it sniffy dust.
What was he by any chance the Blow Man?
No, it was still the Snowman, but it was
That's a good guess, though. That's really close.
I was a weird high school kid. Like,
it's okay. So was I. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, no.
Until I dropped out.
I wanted to be a doctor. Like,
I am too, and I'm 51.
Grey's Anatomy, Mosby's Medical Encyclopedia for fun, but. So, like, I am liberal. Like, I am very, very liberal. But I am also a gun owner, and I have my concealed weapons permit. Like, I have my own personal reasons for that. But I do believe that our gun laws are way too lax. Like, I am obviously in favor of universal background checks, which is a given. In fact, last time I checked the statistics, like, even most NRA members are okay with universal background checks. But I'm also okay with gun registries. Like, I don't think that's the government's like precursor to taking away all the guns. I think that all guns should be licensed and registered, and you should be required to carry some type of insurance, like you do with a car, because it is a deadly weapon with a simple point-and-click interface that even a toddler can use,
But
as we see with all the toddlers accidentally shooting themselves or others.
where's the cutoff? What do you think is the cutoff? Like, what do you think someone what crime would someone have to commit in order to never have to be able to be around a firearm again?
IQ under 100.
I would
Be my
say
ex-girlfriend.
anything
There's
pertaining
a
to
wide range.
violence, like any violent crime, even domestic abusers, or people with known substance abuse issues. And I know that that's a little bit mean, but if you have an alcoholism issue or other substance abuse, like, I mean, if you seek treatment, then I could say maybe we could remedy that, if you're clean. But
Yeah, on a case-by-case basis.
yeah, that would be, it would be given back on a case-by-case basis. But I think, just like, I don't think just because you're prescribed an antidepressant, you shouldn't be allowed to own a gun, because I know plenty of people that are either on off-label uses or they're well managed, and it is a right, and I don't think that we should be willy-nilly taking a right away from people. But I do think once you get to the point of domestic abusers, any type of violent crime where, if you pickpocket or if you lift, a stereo or something from a store, like, I don't know, like relatively petty crime, I don't think that you should lose that right. But again, anything that is violence against another person, be it with a weapon or not. I know, from some of the support groups that I was in online.
I don't know about all that, because, like, what if somebody gets into, like, a simple bar fight or something, or it's a case where you're in a state where there are no self-defense laws, and even though the motherfucker punched you first, you're still getting charged because you whacked them back.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of cases like that should maybe be case by case. I agree with you though. It's like, I survived domestic violence. If my ex-husband was allowed to own a gun, I would probably die of a heart attack.
But you
he wouldn't even get the chance to shoot me. I'd freak out and kill myself.
You made a really good point though, because every state has different laws.
Mm-hmm.
Every state has different laws. Like here in California, if you have a gun in your car, it needs to be in the trunk, hammer back, locks through your gun completely. So basically it has to be in the trunk with gun locks on it, with no way of possibly firing it. I know it
overkill.
Yeah, and separation from the ammunition on top of that.
Complete separation.
We have that in Michigan as well.
But the problem is that also here, we have a complete assault rifle ban, and people have assault rifles here. And it's not just the bad guys, it's the good guys too,
I mean, I think we need uniformity in our gun laws, and it should kind of come somewhere in a happy. I mean, I'm not usually one for centrism, but I think if we take the most restrictive laws like California and New York, and some of the more least restrictive like Texas and Arkansas and a lot of the red states, like if we were to just kind of like bring it to the center, because it's like you've got California has some of the strictest gun laws, and then there are other states that it's kind of like the Wild Wild West. But if you were to average those out, I think you could come to a happy medium where, you're not, because here's the thing, it is a constitutionally protected right. And unless you change the Constitution or the Supreme Court decides, to rule differently, you're not going to get rid of guns in America. It's not going to be like in Australia where they had some bad shootings and they're just like, all right, let's do a gun buyback. We're going to get rid of guns. No more guns.
To be fair, we didn't do gun bye-bye. We did gun ownership without a legitimate reason bye-bye.
So was that Port Arthur in 1996?
Yeah.
After that, you guys got rid of all your guns.
At the time, it was one of the largest mass shootings in the world. We actually beat America in the rules at the time.
And then America said, hold my beer.
Yeah, basically. You guys said, hold my beer.
So the reason I bring that up is
my white claw.
Because in the between the 80s and the 90s, what started happening is there were mass shootings around the world, and every country but America kind of banned gun sales or completely scaled them back. So what happened from the 80s on, guns were advertised to Americans. So they started shifting it. Oh, it's part of your pride. It's part of being an American. But up until the 80s, people really didn't care.
There was no homosexuality that I could hear.
I love saying homosexual. I grew up around a hillbilly, and he was all about his 30-30 and his 30-06 and his 6-shooter.
There's a reason for that, though.
Those are swamp guns.
There's a reason why, the birth of the homosexual, and it's because of the NRA. The NRA actually used to be in my eyes, a legitimate, organization, and they were a gun club. They taught gun safety classes, and that's cool.
Yeah, but now they're just against anything that even resembles.
Question.
It's not even that. It literally comes down to they are no longer for gun owners, but gun lobby and gun manufacturers, which is why they're constantly doing the scare tactics that drive up gun sales. I think they're going to take away your guns, so then people go and they buy guns en masse, because the NRA's propaganda has basically said, no, they're gonna take them away as soon as a dirty, stinking liberal gets in office. They're just gonna ignore the Constitution, which has never happened. Like, I'm still waiting for Obama to come take my gun.
Hillary Clinton said it best. It's not that I want to take away your guns. I just don't want you to get shot by someone who shouldn't have had one to begin with. It's literally that simple.
Well, and I think the base to start with for anything about gun control, is that we're not talking about hunting rifles. I can see people having hunting rifles. I can see a farmer who's got livestock will probably want to have a rifle in case the wolves or coyotes come around.
Absolutely.
So
of course.
We're not talking about that at all.
That's the whole point. If you're a farmer, you're justified in having a gun. I have a friend who owns a farm in Denmark, Australia, not Denmark the country, and he owns 6 guns because he's a farmer, and he's the only one on there. Occasionally, a couple of people who work for him will borrow one of his guns, provided they have a license to use one. And they will go out and they will shoot foxes and rabbits and things like that because they're vermin in Australia. They'll clear out.
There's a legitimate purpose there.
Sorry?
That's the thing. There's like a legitimate purpose there. It's not like your average apocalypse prep. They're coming for everything wacko who's got AK-47s in his basement.
So here's the problem with
what they call it around the country is California legal, and it's an actual term.
Really?
Well, at least here we call it California legal because you have to be able to load it. Besides the handgun, it has to be a single shot. So you can have an MP5. You can't have a semi-automatic weapon or an automatic weapon.
So you can't hear either. And they're completely banned for general use. You cannot have semi-automatic.
I was raised on Annie Oakley rule. It's like, if you can't shoot it the first time, you don't need to be shooting. So
I think most Americans forget.
And in the second shot, I can put it out.
The thing I think a lot of Americans forget is when your Constitution was written and you were given, the First Amendment was done with for gun control. The guns people had were long rifles with sticks that you had to load them one at a time. Second Amendment, sorry. Second Amendment, sorry.
First Amendment is why we could say what we want and not get arrested.
And they were terrible guns. They were made of old wood. They would rust. They wouldn't last longer than a year. So the average...
At the time the Constitution was written, a skilled marksman could get off about 3 rounds a minute maximum.
Yeah.
Effectively, a good person with a sword could beat somebody with a gun still.
It's just another example of technology not catching up with the law, or it's the other way around.
Yeah.
So here, where I live in California, we have something called a dangerous weapons permit, and so you can own a semi-auto, but out of I think it's 39 million people live in California, only 100 people have the permit.
Yeah. And the idea of the Second Amendment isn't that. It's enshrining your rights to own weapons.
I looked it up.
The idea of the Second Amendment was enshrining your right to defend yourself, and B, the right for a state to form militia if you needed to defend the country against an invader.
And I'm pretty sure the
We
words
do.
well-regulated were in there.
Well-regulated militia.
We
yes.
do. We do have a militia. It's called your National Guard. So every state
yeah,
has a militia. Every state
the
has a
Second
militia.
Amendment is the infancy of protection only law.
Yeah.
And we don't have the only yet.
Yes.
I think you should have the right to defend yourself.
If
But
that
I
makes any
like
sense. to you.
so basically, are we coming to the consensus that you shouldn't be able to walk around with a bazooka or anything?
Oh, I think we'd all agree that.
Well, no,
They-
I'm exaggerating, but I'm saying,
But I mean, if
I
you
mean-
took the right to bear arms to the stupid exclusions that that sometimes the NRA have put on it, or some of the people
Yeah,
who
but
are
I've been to
pro-NRA
Montana.
have put on it,
Well-
your right to bear arms could be the right to own a FA-18 or to have a tank, and that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous concept.
Well, the original idea of the Second Amendment was they were afraid of another dictator or a tyrant taking over.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be that each state would have their own militia so that the federal government could not go and take over a state.
Makes
Yes.
sense.
Oh yeah, because everybody's all about states' rights this, states' rights that.
Well, we are too in Australia. I mean, to be fair, the state I'm in hated being dictated because our federal government tried to dictate to us on border rules. This federal government tried to insist that West Australia open up its borders to the rest of the country, despite the fact that we were the only state that weren't having reinfections at the time for coronavirus. So, but the fact
everybody else's right to breathe COVID ended at your airway.
yeah. The fact was, if it came down push to shove, the sovereignty of the states is supported in the Australian Constitution. So there is only so much with external powers that the federal government can do to tell a state to open its borders.
Yeah,
And at a
but here in
certain
the
point,
U.S., federal generally trumps state.
it does in
unless
Australia, but there is the issue that if, as a federal government, you push on one of the states to a certain extent, generally speaking, the other states will push back. Because if you're going to tell one of the states they have to do something a certain way, you're doing it to all of them. And overrule the state conferences can overrule the federal government on certain things if all the states agree. So
it's like a check. It's like a checks and balances system of sorts. I like that.
it kind of is. So there's this
Yes,
interesting
yeah.
balance.
Actual checks and balances, not the illusion of one like we had in the Trumpian age of stupid that we're still dealing with the after
What it
effects of,
comes
and
down
very well
to
be for a long
is
time.
if the
Oh, that's fun. Well, we're still having fun.
Not with my phone.
I'm just trying to
Yes,
get
with
it
your
up
phone.
and running.
You keep being me and want to use my phone?
You keep talking in the middle of the live stream.
Really gotten more into makeup again. Like, I didn't wear it for the longest time, or if I did, it was just basically lipstick, eyeliner, and foundation to even everything out. But like doing the wing, like I figured out how to do it with my hooded eyes. So ever since, I'm like, fuck yeah, let's get that little flick going.
Yeah. Okay, so on my end, I'm seeing the stream, but
Yep, we're back.
Oh,
That was a pain in
Jen's
the butt.
back.
Okay, I'm gonna have to fix the video up for me, but give me a sec.
Yeah, it's running on YouTube.
Yeah, it's running. I'm sorry. We're so sorry, everybody. My OBS crashed in the background.
Fun.
It happened.
yes.
It happened
Happens
when Will added
with
Jeff.
that.
Hi,
Shakes
Jeff.
fits like Kurt at con.
Well, now I can actually look at the side chat.
Where am I? Me.
Hey, B's in the chat. Hello, love. How are
Hey,
you?
B.
Mwah.
How's it going?
Hey,
Hi,
baby.
B.
There you go. Fixed. That was frustrating.
Magic.
Yeah, no, for some reason the encoding died to the stream from OBS and it just
Hell, I
brought the whole lot down and I had to kill OBS and restart it. Fortunately, the stream didn't end before that. I was able to fix it, so that's good.
Yeah, I
I'm
was a little
terribly
worried
sorry
it
to
would go
everybody.
offline.
Anyone who we've lost, I am so sorry that people were enjoying the show and had to jump out, but we're back now, so hopefully people will come back. B, if you want to hop in and join the conversation, I know you've got stuff to say about gun control. I will send you a link.
I got plenty to say myself about it. Like I was
I think
saying before
everyone
we went
does.
live. That's why
Oh.
I'm here. I thought
What were
gun
we?
control. Like,
What were we in the middle of when that happened?
Comic-Con.
Does anyone in the
You were
chat know
talking
what we were
about
talking about?
states' rights and how
Yeah.
the states can, if they all band together, override the Fed in Australia.
In Australia,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's a case of if the federal government pushes the states back too hard, there are abilities within the Constitution for the states to say no, because the federal government basically gets its power because those abilities are given to it by the states. It's written within the Constitution, but the states can, as a group, kick back on that. So there are
That's
checks and
actually
balances,
awesome.
not
I
only
like
in our
that.
levels of government, but in the way the states respond back to the federal government. But I don't know the full details of how it works. If Chris does join us, he'll be able to fill us in because he actually does know how it all works. But it is
Yeah.
it is one of the areas of our checks and balances. So
Yeah, I definitely think, like, now that I know that, we definitely did not do enough to implement actual checks and balances in our Constitution. But that's just one of many things wrong with this godforsaken country.
Do you think we're too far gone?
Actually, I think the checks and balances would work if we weren't stuck with the two-party system.
Because there's
I
going to
don't know about it necessarily being the two-party system per se. Honestly, I'm like one of those people who's totally in favor of term limits. And not only that, the decline in the quality of education of how our system of government, how civics actually work here. There's people get these notions about how things work when that's not the case. Like
That's
the
by
ridiculous
design, though.
nonsense about suspending the Constitution to try to keep Biden out of office.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah,
I
my
just
streaming
mean
artist
that,
doesn't like me
You know,
right
if
now.
we had like five
okay.
political parties who all had some candidates in Congress, you wouldn't be able to have one party being able to push whatever they want because they have the majority.
Yeah, you would have to have coalitions like it works in more parliamentary style systems.
Yeah, but unfortunately, most of the voting public now has been too conditioned to the two-party system. I agree with the idea of breaking away from two parties, but it can't happen overnight. That's why I say when people vote third party at this stage in time, especially in presidential elections, you're kind of throwing away a vote.
Oh, yeah.
The trick is, over the course of time, the
Yeah.
existence of third parties has to be made like more well known. Like, hey, maybe this isn't the only option. But the problem is, it seems like third parties only come up in the conversation when it's time to elect a president, and nobody stops and thinks, gee, maybe if we got more independents, got more third parties. I don't want to say libertarians because they're just becoming Republican light. But
who live in the woods.
yeah,
if we had
they're
ranked
basically
votes,
like
voting
Repu-
Kinda
they're
like
basically
Budweiser
if
horses.
Republicans and Sopsists had a love child. But you know that's the thing. If we got more of that in Congress, because if say we have like a libertarian president, but then we only have Democratic and Republican Congress, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So the Second Amendment clearly states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You can really interpret that a lot of ways.
And that's been, I think, part of your problem, how
Well,
that's
here's
been
the thing.
interpreted.
Here's the thing about
ambiguity is where we get these
the
debates
language
from.
of the American Constitution. The way that the founding fathers wrote the Constitution of the United States was to be nebulous on purpose, so it can change for the better as time passed.
Oh, I wish
It
we
was meant
changed.
to be a living
But the
document.
phrasing that was in there
Yeah.
that you just read, was what was it, for the protection of a free state? And that's
Fluid
there are
days.
places in the Constitution that they make that distinction between a state and the national government.
Yeah.
So if it's a state, they are not talking about the federal government. They are talking about the individual states.
Which is why each state sets its own gun laws.
That's why in California you can't buy an automatic rifle, and in Nevada you could buy anything that you want. Anything, any kind of gun you could possibly think of.
But,
Perhaps I should move to Nevada.
Honestly, like going back to the civics thing, what it comes down to, that is by design, and it's mostly on the Republican side because unfortunately they don't want an educated populace, because the higher
No.
educated someone is, the less likely they are to vote for a Republican. Trump was kind of an
Exactly.
outlier in that he did get a lot of
Exactly.
college educated white people, but that was probably just because of the racism and xenophobia, if we're being honest.
Oh, and people also felt disenfranchised, and they didn't feel represented after Obama, not knowing the numbers. They had numbers in this country.
And on the third party thing, part of the reason why it comes up every presidential election is because third parties aren't actually allowed on the stage during debates unless they reach a certain percentage of the vote. And if they don't reach that, then it won't happen. So I found,
Right.
these last two elections
Exactly.
to be, kind of an existential crisis for the country. I voted for Hillary, even though I can't stand the bitch. And I voted for Biden, even though both times Bernie was my guy. But
Yeah, that's
I
basically
understand.
how I did it.
I
You had to be
understand
pragmatic.
why people were voting third party, because if they don't vote third party, then they're never going to be allowed in the debates. They're not going to get the spotlight on them that they need in order to get elected, because as Bloomberg shows you, he came into the race late, dropped a fuck ton of money, and he was running away with some of the polls for a little bit there, all because of name recognition and because of money spent on advertising. I think the best thing that we can do for our country, for all the laws, not just gun laws, is overturn Citizens United, get money out of
Absolutely.
politics, and have publicly financed elections. Then it's the issues that matter and not who spends the most.
Well,
And
I think
once you attain those, then you can focus on things that will make everybody's lives better. Medicare for all, better school funding, et cetera, et cetera.
I
Well,
think
yeah,
what would
we
make a huge
definitely need to get
difference-
we definitely need to get the corporations or people mindset out of politics. But who even knows when that's going to happen? That's really.
Well, I think what
Yeah.
would make a huge difference that could be done in a matter of a few years is to get ranked choice voting in. Because then, you can list the candidates by who you favor. And if the candidate that you liked first doesn't win, it does not automatically mean the candidate you liked least is going to win.
Yeah.
And ranked choice voting is actually probably one of the most feasible things to do,
Yeah.
because of the fact that it is the states that control how they run their individual elections. And if enough states do it, then it would kind of...
I can't imagine
Right.
any Republican-led
Being
states
everywhere.
would ever do it.
Yeah. First we've got to get a couple of states to enact it, because most of the people aren't going to believe it until they see how it works.
You also need your electoral college to be proportionate, not first past the post.
The
gets
electoral
all the
college
votes.
No,
has
we need to
go.
get rid of the Electoral College.
It
The
needs to
Electoral
go.
College was literally a compromise with slave states,
Yep.
because, black people, slaves, did not count as much,
Really?
and they wanted to have sway over how electoral politics would go. So it literally came down to the fact that what was it, the 3/5 compromise?
Yeah,
I'm
3/5.
remembering.
Yeah, that was it.
Because-
Wow.
The
Yeah,
Electoral
something like that.
College made sense when the fastest form of communication was a man on horseback, and it took
True.
several weeks for, somebody in Washington, D.C. to find out what their constituents in the Midwest states wanted.
Yeah.
There's no
so
need to have it any
made
longer.
sense at a time. But yeah, now
Exactly,
with
exactly.
the instantaneous communication, there's no purpose for it.
Your
And it
your
gives more
whole
power.
ceremonial thing from when you actually have your election to when the new president's inaugurated is ridiculous now. Because there is nothing stopping it once you've got the count finalized.
Yeah.
Inaugurating the new president. There is no
Well, and
reason why
again,
you
that-
How
cannot
it's written
have
in the
that.
Constitution.
That was all
Yeah.
that delay had to do with that, after the
time.
election, about notifying the governors of all the territories what had happened, letting the governors appoint people who then would be sent to, at the time, Philadelphia, and that's why there's all that, why it takes months between the election and getting the new candidates sworn into office.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
it
there
should. It
was a
doesn't need
reason
to
back
be.
then, but now, I mean, I was living in fear from November until January. You know, all right,
Yeah.
how nuclear is Trump going to go to cause as much damage as possible before I mean, I was thinking he was going to get dragged out because
So
and
you
I
know
was
what?
hoping to see it.
You're not alone.
Technically, you guys now though could have your election early January with the
Yeah,
inauguration still
most
at the same
people
time.
were like this.
You know, I agree with you, Signees. After Trump lost, I really thought he was gonna start a war.
Oh,
I really
so did I. I
was
thought he was going to push
start a
the
war.
button. I woke up.
He
My mother
tried.
once told
Yeah,
me.
he
My mother once
tried.
told me she lived through the Reagan era. My mom lived through the Reagan era, waking up every morning saying, "Is today the day he's going to push the button?" That's how I felt from the time the election was called for Biden, and even before that, actually, while the vote was still being counted. I'm thinking to myself, all right, is Trump going to push the button as a last fuck you to we the people for voting him out?
The problem is that he had people that were willing to help him and be complicit in his sedition.
Oh,
He
I
had
know.
people
The
that-
whole time he
and-
had enablers.
But he had
Willing to
less
Well, right,
people.
and let's
he had
think
less.
about this. Let's
He
think
had
about
less
this for a
than he
second
thought
about the impeachment rules. The impeachment rule thing was okay. Trump was impeached, and it wasn't kicking him out of office. It wasn't stopping him from doing anything. It was silencing him, but he still had the power of the presidential office. So he's like, fuck you. I'm still going to continue being an asshat and whatever. So it was like impeachment didn't matter one bit to his silly ass, and he just kept right on continuing with his mythology and violent crap.
Well,
Yeah,
telling
and
people
he
to
was riding
start
on the
this and
high
start
of,
that.
he was riding on the high of he had been acquitted in an impeachment trial, and he basically that basically gave him the typical malignant narcissist aha moment of, okay, I guess I'm above the law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got away with it.
But he thought that
he
before
learned
that.
No lessons.
Didn't he actually say I could walk down the street in New York and shoot somebody
I
and
could
no
shoot
one would
somebody on
arrest me?
Fifth Avenue. That was before he even got
He
voted in.
said so much.
Yep,
That.
he did say that.
What were you going to say,
It's hard to
Purple?
keep track of what idiotic things came out of his mouth. I like to forget most of them because if I dwelled on them too much, I'd lose my mind even more than I already have.
well,
Perfect.
yeah, and why is it that
Exactly.
Trump was allowed to get away with all this shit when Al Franken was kicked out of office for a tasteless joke?
Because
And
it was because of the letter next to his name. That's what it was.
Katie
I
Hill
mean,
got
Democrats.
he was a bully the entire 2016 election. I mean,
Katie Hill had her in
I watched
California.
the second debate, and he's prowling around. He's walking around and looking at Hillary all menacingly. He was behaving like a predator, and his supporters loved it.
Yeah,
That's
but
why I
the,
say, if you don't have voters' remorse, there were people who had reasons for voting for Trump that they thought were legitimate. It wasn't because they were assholes. But as time went on, if people continued to support him, then it was just a reflection on who they were as people.
Can I
The
just
Republican
point out we
Party
have
has
moved
been floated.
amazingly off topic here.
no, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, this is the Trump recovery
Well-
stream now because I think we're all gonna have to talk it out about Trump for a while. We're gonna have bad thoughts about that guy for a while.
I
So
think
I'm
this
okay
is
if
going to
it's
be
more-
whenever you
Well,
have discussion
yeah,
about something
and
that's
the
particularly
reason-
that
the
heavily
reason why
pertains
the
to
topic has
the
changed
USA.
is because the bicameral political system in America is so fucked up
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm. That it
you know,
is.
and so much in opposition and attacking each other that the simple topic of gun control, it doesn't even come into play unless it's you're extreme this way or extreme that way
Oh yeah, there's no middle
based
ground.
on our political views. There's
Because this
no
is a problem that
agreement
gun
in
control
between
is heavily
per
partisan.
topic.
Okay, so
There's no single topic that we can agree on because here's the topic and this is what them damned old liberals believe. Die.
Oh,
It's
I
like,
know.
oh, come on.
Everybody digs in their heels. Nobody wants to think about. Everybody's thinking of getting their way and not what's for the good of the people.
Kitty, what were you gonna say?
well, I was
That's
going
what
to
she
try to
said.
bring it back to the topic a little bit. In that, when I got my concealed weapons permit here in Florida, I did actually have to take a test. Like I had to sit in on a safety class, and I had to do a practical test of how to properly handle, load, fire, and unload a firearm in order to get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you're going to have a concealed weapons permit, you should have more than that. And what I took to get that permit should be baseline for if you want to own a gun. It's like you have a right to own a gun. Great. But before you can go buy the gun, you should have to go through a safety course and show that
Just
you
like with
are
driving.
confident with using said
I
firearm.
agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I
Well,
agree with you.
To drive a car, you need to take a test to prove you know how to do so safely. You need
True.
to have it registered, so if something happens with that car, the government knows who's responsible. And you need
Yep.
to have insurance if anybody is injured by it. I
Exactly.
don't know why we can't require those same
Yep.
basic 3 requirements for anyone to have a gun.
I mean,
And
devil's
I agree.
advocate, they will say that the reason why is owning a car is not a constitutionally protected right, whereas a gun is. However, I mean,
Cars
there are
just as
already
deadly.
there are already limits on the Second Amendment in that you can't own a fully automatic weapon. You can't own a bazooka. You can't own a nuclear weapon. So having a little bit
Unfortunately, you
more
can't even own a
restriction-
flamethrower.
Yeah, right. Like
I wish I owned a
Elon
flamethrower.
Musk and his flamethrower business. That would have been great. But no, when it comes down to it, there's already restrictions on the Second Amendment that are common sense. And having a gun registry, having mandatory safety, having to carry. I mean, hell. When we switch, we can switch to Medicare for all, and all of the health insurance companies, if they want to stay in the insurance game, then they can just sell personal injury protection insurance for gun owners.
Well,
Yeah,
you can do it
so
the
win-win.
same. You could do your health insurance a similar way to how it is in Australia. Our government-backed health insurance does not cover absolutely everything. There are things outside of that are only covered by private health insurance. There's also the fact that if you want to go private, so if you want to be in a non-government hospital and just a private hospital, or if you want extra facilities like private room instead of being in a ward or whatever else, they're only covered if you've got private health insurance. So it's your basic healthcare cover that is fully covered as from the government perspective.
It was
If you
supposed
want
to be
extras,
thrown
if you
out,
want all the
right?
perks,
That's
you have
quite
to pay for
nebulous,
that.
though. Define basic.
Sorry?
Define basic. Medically
Basic
necessary
health
or
cover as
basic?
far as Medicare in Australia goes would be if you had to go to hospital for a medical procedure. For one thing, you'd end up on a waiting list for the hospitals that would provide it under government the government schemes. So unless, of course, it was completely life-threatening, you don't jump lists. You have to wait a while to have the surgery. You'd be in a ward, so you'd be sharing a room at least with one other person, usually 3 other people. There's other things like if you like extra facilities available in the hospital. Like if you want a TV, you want to watch telly whilst you're in the ward or use the internet through the hospital. It's usually something you have to pay extra for, unless, of course, you're a long-term patient. If you're private health insurance, you get a private room. You'll get all this other stuff.
So if you
That's
need,
very
say,
similar
a
to the
knee
UK.
replacement surgery, you might be on a bit of a
That's
waiting
fine.
list, but if your appendix ruptures, you're seen right away.
You're seen straight away, yeah. So if it's life-threatening...
So it's basically like a nationwide triage of sorts before you even
It
set foot
is.
in the
There's a
ER.
nationwide triage if you do it under government health. If you have private health insurance, you can get in quicker.
Pretty much.
You don't have the same level of
Well,
waiting.
that
You
sounds kinda like
you
a
get
fair
extra
Man.
benefits. So there is a benefit for still having private health cover. So our private health insurance companies still do well, but
It's
but
funny.
everyone
Getting
is
into a
covered.
healthcare discussion rather than gun real quick.
Yeah, but in America, they'll let you die in the waiting room depending on where you live and who you
Now,
are.
Yep.
segueing this back to the gun thing, the CDC is
Yeah,
actually
they will.
barred by law to track gun crime as a health issue. It's a public health issue. I forget what it was that did that. Like, let me pull that up real quick. But the CDC is not actually allowed to track gun crimes as a public health issue.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And what is the basis for that?
They didn't want the government didn't want those numbers getting out.
Do you think that
um,
given the overarching
amendment.
overarching availability of weapons in America. Perhaps gun safety and education on handling and being safe with guns should be something that's taught in high schools.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess because I grew up. I grew up.
I could see
even
having
younger.
basic classes in gun safety in the high schools.
What's that, Purple?
I could see having basic classes in gun safety in the high schools.
I was taught at even elementary school age. I was taught at a very young age about gun, but the laws were different in the 80s. My father and I we would walk over the bridge with our rifles in bags, go into the woods and go shoot stuff. You know, you'd have 15 helicopters flying overhead now in California if you did that.
So I've got the text pulled up here. The Dickey Amendment is the provision first inserted as a rider into the 1996 U.S. federal government omnibus spending bill, which mandated that none of the funds made available for injury prevention and control at the CDC Center for Disease Control and Prevention may be used to advocate or promote gun control. In the same spending bill, Congress earmarked $2.6 million from the CDC's budget, the exact amount that had previously been allocated to the agency for firearms research the previous year for traumatic brain injury related research. The amendment was lobbied for by the National Rifle Association, the NRA, and named after its author, J. Dickey, a Republican member of the United States House of Representatives from Arkansas. Although the Dickey Amendment did not explicitly ban it, for about 2 decades the CDC avoided all research on gun violence for fear it would be financially penalized. Congress clarified the law in 2018 to allow for such research, and the fiscal year 2020 federal omnibus spending bill earmarked the first funding for it since 1996.
Wow.
So until 2 years ago, the CDC did not do any research on gun violence for fear.
Well, and basically that was passed when the school shootings became a regular thing.
Yeah, back in 96. So that was Columbine.
Yeah.
Because basically they didn't want to have any statistics on what was going wrong so that the NRA could deny them.
Yeah, Columbine was a little after 96.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 99.
Even still, like...
There was shootings
because
before.
you remembered it.
I mean, yeah, there were, but
you know, the one thing that kind of that.
So you said 96. Did the NRA do that as a response to the shooting in Australia before shit happened over there?
Maybe. Like I said earlier, we were the last country left. After Australia outlawed guns, we were it.
Yeah, I'm like, was this a response? They saw what happened in Australia. They saw how we responded to it, and the NRA went, "Oh crap! If something really bad happens here, we're going to lose our rights on guns."
Well,
and they went in up front to stop it.
Well, you also got to remember.
It says, the language was added by Congress to the Consolidated Appropriations Act 2012, funding the National Institutes of Health. This language was also lobbied for by the NRA.
Naturally.
Okay, in the U.S. during the 1994-95 school year, there were 20 deaths from shooting on school property.
Columbine was 99, but there was Lubby shooting in Killeen, Texas in 91, which killed 23 people and injured 27.
Well, this is what I'm saying, that 5 years before Columbine, there were 20 people killed for people shooting guns off at schools.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to say before. It was frequent occurrence out here. Yeah. So when they started saying mass shootings and school shootings, people in LA were like, "That's been happening since the late '80s." You know.
Yeah, I think the first mass shooting was in the late '70s or so, or maybe early '80s.
There were the Camden shootings in 1949. I actually have some of them all up here. The Camden shootings were in 1949 in Camden, New Jersey, and there were 13 deaths. Then the next one of note is University of Texas Tower shooting in Austin, Texas in 66.
Charles Whitman,
Easter Sunday massacre in 1975. Wilkes Barre shootings in 1982. Wami massacre in 83. San Ysidro McDonald's massacre in 1984. Palm Sunday massacre in 84. Edmond post office shooting in 86. That's why you can't carry guns on post office property anymore.
What
Then
about
Bloody
Hungerford?
shooting in 91, and then from 99,
See,
99 there were two. There was one in Atlanta and Columbine, and then 2007 was Virginia Tech, Fort Hood in 2009, Birmingham Binghamton, New York in 2009, Geneva in 2009, Sandy Hook in 2012. And I'm sorry, after a bunch of dead fucking children, if they weren't going to do shit on gun control, there's no will to fucking do it.
No.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a question
No.
though, and I'm not sure if anyone can
Yeah.
answer this. Yeah, my brain's just gone.
You know, you can still buy that. They tried to outlaw that gun, and you can
Something.
still buy a Bushmaster. You can
Yeah,
still,
well-
to this day, buy the gun that was used at Sandy Hook.
Really?
I was gonna-
That's dreadful.
Really?
I was
Yeah.
going to pick up on something that Jen
Oh,
was
yeah?
saying. I was going to pick up
Well,
on
here's
something
the
Jen-
thing. Things didn't become news until they
My
hit the
microphone working?
innocent areas.
It's working, Jeff. Sorry.
Okay.
Everybody accepted the stuff in the cities and things, but where there's always been violence and riots and everything else. But as soon as they hit a farmland, oh my God, what the fuck just
Yeah,
happened?
like,
well,
or
the same thing
suburbia.
that just happened in the city.
I agree with you.
Yep.
Jeff,
And if we had
yeah.
shootings happening on golf courses and at prep schools, we'd have gun control overnight.
and armed guards at
If
all
somebody
those
shot
locations.
up Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
if somebody went in Mar-a-Lago with an AK, that would be it.
Man, I only got up to, early 2012. There's still a bunch more. Like, these are, like, the really big ones.
What were you talking about before when I interrupted you, Kitty? Because
Yeah, here
I'm
we are, a
trying to
decade
remember what I was
later,
gonna
right?
say, 'cause it
I
wasn't
was
time.
talking about the mass shootings. So there was Sandy Hook in 2012. That was 27 kids that were
Ugh.
killed.
Yeah.
Aurora Theater shooting in 2012. 12 people were killed.
Remember that.
Washington Navy Yard shooting in 2013. 12 were killed. Plus the part, but fucking, I don't care. You fucking perpetrated this. I do not give one fuck about you getting killed after killing a bunch of people.
At all.
Washington Navy Yard shooting was
Right.
2013. San Bernardino attack in 2015. The Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016, which killed 49 people and
Ugh.
injured 58 others. The Las Vegas shooting killed 58 people, which is the single deadliest. It actually, Pulse nightclub was the deadliest.
You
mass
really did
shooting.
say to us over here, hold my beer, didn't you? You
Yeah.
really fucking
No,
did.
Pulse at 50. Pulse at 49.
Mhm.
Killed and 58 injured was the highest, but then the Las Vegas shooter a year later killed 58 plus
Jesus.
injured 869 people. Only 413 of those were from actual gunfire.
Jesus, I
Others
never
got
heard the
trampled.
actual numbers on that one.
But yes, almost 900 people were injured and almost 60 people were killed in the Las Vegas shooting. The Sutherland
Holy
Springs
shit.
church shooting in Texas killed 26 people. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting in Parkland, Florida
Right.
killed 17 and injured 17 more. Thousand Oaks shooting in 2018. Sorry, we're in 2018 now.
Yeah.
Killed 12 people plus injured 16 more. The Pittsburgh synagogue shooting killed 11 people and injured 6 more. Santa Fe High School shooting in 2018 killed 10, injured 13 more. El Paso Walmart shooting killed 22, injured
Wait,
24.
did Parkland come up in that?
Yes. Parkland is actually Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned that was in Parkland, Florida. That was in 2018. 2019, the El Paso Walmart shooting killed 22, injured 24. And then in 2019, the Virginia Beach shooting, which killed 12 and injured 4 more. And the majority of these are
Wow.
from semi-automatic rifles
lot.
or pistols. In fact, only the University of Texas Tower shooting back in 1966 had a bolt-action rifle, a semi-automatic carbine, a revolver, a semi-automatic pistol, and a pump-action shotgun. The rest are all either semi-auto
As a
rifles or
Marine.
semi-auto pistols.
And yet, in
Although
Australia, we've
no,
had...
oh, sorry.
Sorry, in Australia, since Port Arthur, which was 35 dead, which includes the shooter, we have only had, I think 4 or 5 other shootings. The largest of them was 7.
Was Saugus High School on that list? in 2019?
I don't know.
You know what? That's
Santa
really sad.
Fe High
It's
School.
it's really sad because in my hometown there was a child who went to school and killed 2 of his classmates in
I think
2019.
these are the higher numbers. These aren't all of them. There are
okay.
shootings every single day.
That's
These
what
are
I'm saying.
some of the
Yeah,
biggest.
no, there are definitely quite a few schools that were left out of there.
Yeah, no, these aren't just school shootings. These are just mass shootings, and these seem to be like 10 or more people killed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a mass shooting is 3 or more people killed, I do believe.
That's so sad. They're calling
Yeah,
this a mass
because
shooting.
there was false data and everything. I have a friend of mine who lives in Ocala, Florida, and his best friend there was talking about when everybody surrounded, the Ocala junior high school. All it was is a kid that went in, was threatening everybody with a shotgun. He got nervous. He dropped it. It went off and hit a teacher in the ankle. That was it. And it was just a few hours later. It was the sheriff was talking about due to the coordinated efforts of blah 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 authorities, and they did not do anything except for hold all those children at gunpoint.
I'm going to respond to class
data.
in the... Sorry, Harmonica, continue.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to respond to Class Boulder in the chat where they've said many shootings around my area done by normal people. The whole thing that people say that they were such a nice person. When you hear about mass killers, and you go, oh, they were such a nice person, and I really couldn't imagine. And that is the point. Even if you have good background checks, even if you do psychological assessments of these people break. An average person who would pass all those tests can break. And if they have access to weapons that make it easy to kill lots of people, they may go and do that. This is a problem. You're right that if you've got a little 6-shooter, if your maximum you're allowed is a little 6-shooter that has a limited amount of shots in it, and you have security personnel at enough places and good police representation, there's unlikely to going to be a lot of people who are killed by somebody who goes off the deep end. In fact, they're more likely to try other things. The thing we found in Australia is our largest killing sprees since Port Arthur have been twice. We've had tolls of 11 or more, and they were both arson. Because it's because if you've got a building full of people you want to kill, and you can't get a semi-automatic weapon, that's probably going to be your easiest way to kill a lot of people. But you still have people who have those psychotic breaks and want to be able to do these things. So you've got to be aware of this. Even if you have the most stringent background checks, somebody can go from being completely normal to being off their fucking rocker.
So how do we assess the risk of who's going to do that and who isn't? That's the problem.
I agree, Jen. Does everybody remember Timothy McVeigh in the Oklahoma bombing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wasn't old enough for it, but I know about it.
I was a child, I remember. Though.
I spent the following years on Christmas with all of those families showing up, serving them dinner and everything, and it broke my fucking heart that shit happened because it wasn't monitored enough, and somebody like that could just walk in, or drive in with an entire truck full of explosives, fertilizer and shit, just doing whatever, and not being a farmer, by the way, and just
or properly searched,
killing a shitload of people.
Yeah, well, luckily now I think you get in a watch list now if you start buying up a bunch of fertilizer.
Oh, there's a whole
farming there are limits on how much you can get.
Oh, yeah.
It depends on here in California. If you started buying that stuff, you get put on a list. The cops. Sorry, Jeff.
I think it's like that in New Jersey. I don't know about Pennsylvania.
Right. Jeff, how you doing?
Jeff's got a historical point on things, so he should explain to us, the historical value of whatever, on the gun control.
There's a load I could say, but I was going to say on McVeigh. The thing was, this guy was very well known around gun shows in the United States before he did what he did. I mean, we obviously, anyone who knows anything about him knows this guy was a neo-Nazi. He absolutely was obsessed with that novel, The Turner Diaries.
He was.
Yeah, but he was very, very well known around these gun shows and around the time that these militias were starting. I mean, I think they're a massive problem. But what I was trying to say a while ago, what Jen brought up about what happened with Port Arthur in '96 and the fact that what happened to the Dickey Amendment. Something else happened in '96 in the UK, and that was Dunblane. That was we had a man walk into our only mass school shooting, went there and killed something like 15 or 16 children, then took his own life.
Yeah, it actually wasn't long after Port Arthur either. It was. That was the start.
That's awful.
That was like January '96 or something.
Yeah, it was like a couple of months after Port Arthur happened. So it was like we had ours and you had yours, and that just I mean, you went through basically the same things of tightening gun laws as we did.
We pretty much handguns have not been a thing in the UK since then. Pretty much. I mean, you have to if you want to shoot handguns, you have to do it at a registered club or whatever. And the gun's got to be kept at the club under lock and key. Now, what a lot of people may not know about me is I'm a former gun owner myself. I still have a gun cabinet up in my loft. This is one of the things of the UK. You can't, you've got to keep a gun. It's got, unless you're not using it, it's got to be under lock and key in your house. It's none of this. This is why when this is why we've had the issues with people doing the someone shooting someone who broke in, and why it wasn't deemed necessarily self-defense because the gun shouldn't have been lying about in the first place. But I was also going to. I was also going to say one more thing, and then I'll shut up for a bit. The debate comes up, isn't there, every time there's a shooting in the US, whether it's gun laws or better mental health care that's needed. That goes very much back to the Texas tower shooting with Charles Whitman. That whole that's very much where that argument sort of starts, because we now know that there was actually something wrong with him. There was something actually wrong with his. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was something wrong with his brain when they did the autopsy. But the problem is, it seems to me you've got these people like the NRA and these types who only seem to give a shit about mental health when something like this happens, because the rest of the time they couldn't give a flying fuck.
But that's the problem with the lobbyists. They only care when it fits their interest.
You can replace lobbyists with Republicans, and that's
hold on. When it comes to lobbyists, there's only one kind of lobbyist, and that's the elite business person.
Yeah.
Shall we
they
talk
don't
about
give a shit about poor people killing each other?
Shall we talk about the elephant in the room?
All they care about
this is always the counter argument to anything about better gun control laws in any other country. Canada. Because there is almost as high a gun ownership in Canada as there is in the USA, and yet Canada's record with shootings is almost as good as Australia's. So few of them. I mean, I know they've happened, but it's still low. And yet, there's this huge amount of gun ownership in a country around the same size as Australia. Canada's slightly more populous, but it's not hugely more populous. And yet, there is that level of safety in Canada. So how much of the problem in America isn't just the gun ownership, it's the culture of the gun ownership. Because the culture for gun ownership in Canada is very different to the culture of gun ownership in the US.
We believe the culture.
I agree.
When you're saying gun ownership, are we even talking about the same types of guns? Or are we comparing that most everyone in Canada has a hunting rifle to how many people in the US have automatic weapons?
Well, not automatic.
Yeah, definitely a different kind of.
Well, automatic weapons are a problem for mass shootings, but you still have a lot of other gun shootings in the US that don't seem to be happening in your northern neighbor, and yet there's that same level of gun ownership. So there is certainly a cultural
mental health care may tie in. You get a lot of Republicans who don't want any gun restrictions saying stuff about the mental health system, but you know what? It does tie in. I mean, Canada's got socialized medicine as well, and there's definitely better access to mental health care there, where there isn't as much in the United States. So, because we've got the for-profit health system, so basically, individuals who would most be at risk for violence like that, they'd have more access to the kind of psychiatric help they would so desperately require before getting to that point.
You know what, though? Harmonica Man brought up a good point. There are 39 million people just in California, and there's 37 million people in all of Canada.
So yeah, I mean, there is this closeness thing.
Like Neil was saying, right? That all of Canada can fit inside of California for population-wise. So if you're annoyed with your neighbor, he's like 5 miles away. Are you really gonna go waste the time going to shoot his ass?
Real quick, going back to what Jeff had said about Charles Whitman. Sorry, I've been waiting for a chance to come in here. So Charles Whitman was studying architectural engineering when he was 25. In 1961, he was admitted to the University of Texas at Austin on a scholarship from the Naval Enlisted Science Education Program. While at UT, Whitman met and married his wife, Kathleen. Whitman struggled with gambling and bad grades, and he lost his scholarship in 1963. In the months prior to the attack, Whitman had sought professional help for overwhelming violent impulses, including fantasies about shooting people from the tower. An autopsy conducted after his death revealed a hypothalamic tumor. So he was definitely having mental health crisis before the shooting, and it might have been related to the tumor, might not. But the fact that he sought help but didn't get it, I believe there is a strong correlation between our shitty mental health system, our healthcare system in general, and these shootings. But there's also the cultural aspect too. Like guns are as American as apple pie and eagles. I
mean that is the same for your northern relatives. Canadians love their guns. But there is also the aspect I was getting to about that is there is also an element of fear that's portrayed within your media, like especially between the ghetto areas and the normal areas, and yet people have to protect themselves, which I don't think happens in Australia or Canada or other places. Sorry?
I think also we have a false identity in America.
Can I say something?
Yeah. Go ahead.
There's an old saying, crazy people don't know they're crazy. When the guy had like the growth on his hypothalamus or whatever and didn't seek out mental health, it's probably because all he did was just had a feedback loop of anger in wanting to do something. He didn't know there's something actually.
No, he did seek help.
Oh, did he?
He sought mental help.
Because a lot of people don't.
But didn't receive it. And then he did the shooting.
Yeah, and that.
Oh, I see. So there's a flaw in the system itself.
It's an issue that intersects.
Okay.
But completely separate thing. Whether you are for or against gun control, the U.S. needs a better system for mental health so that people who want it can get it.
Right.
Yeah, and the thing is, the gun control issue and the mental health issue, they do correlate to an extent. They do intersect, but it's nowhere near as 100% the mental health thing that people on, in my opinion, the absolute wrong side of the debate. It's not a gun issue. It's a mental health issue. It's the two of them just kind of turned into a big clusterfuck.
Yeah, and I wish people would stop playing them off one against the other.
I agree.
I think it's even bigger than that. Like I said, it's your mental health. It's the guns that are available. because you do have an overabundance
Exactly.
of different types of
That's
guns
what
that are
I'm saying.
available.
It's not
We have
100%
more
a
guns
mental
than
health
people
thing.
in this country.
We have
There
more.
are more guns than every man, woman, and child in this country.
But
Yeah,
there's
we have
also
more
the
guns than
culture
people.
element, which comes down
But
to
we-
education as well. Because
We also have to
bullshit.
stop viewing this as a dichotomy.
My
It's
side
not
is
mental
just-
health or guns. These are two issues, both of which need to be addressed, and you
Absolutely.
can't pawn one off on the other.
no, I agree.
And that's the thing. The
Yeah,
question
right,
of
right,
gun control,
exactly.
that doesn't have to be a dichotomy either. It doesn't have to be California level or higher restrictions or nothing at all. There's perfectly reasonable middle ground. For example, background checks have been mentioned. I've gotten into a few debates with the homosexuals and with some reasonable gun owners, and the biggest difference is anybody with any sense is totally fine with background checks, because my thing is, I always tell people, if you oppose background checks, I automatically want to know why you would fail one. So I can probably say with almost absolute certainty, anyone who's against something that basic, the fact that they see it as an infringement of their right, it's like, okay, you know what?
But there's
If you're
a
against it, then there's something wrong with you, and you probably shouldn't have a gun.
there's a
gonna
big
work
difference
with you
though.
underneath.
Because like in California, you have to get a DOG
I'm-
background
no.
check. You have to take a class, like Kitty said. And I watched a video today, good old YouTube. In Virginia, it took a reporter a half an hour to get a gun. That would never happen here. You
And-
get a full DOJ background check. You
No.
know,
In Florida, there is a waiting period to buy a handgun of 3 days. However, if you have a concealed weapons permit, that
7
is
days.
waived because you've already gone through your background check, and that waiting period is also so they can do the background check on you if you go to a licensed gun dealer, like in the Florida Gun Exchange, for example. Now, I own one gun. Like, I know people that own a bunch, they collect them, and sure, there's a part of me that would love to have a collection, but I really only need one. Now, I am looking into getting a second one, but only because the one I currently own is a 40, and it's a bit heavy, a bit clunky, so it's one of the reasons why I don't actually conceal carry very often. I'm looking at getting a 9mm instead, and I'll probably get rid of the 40. I mean, I might keep it for sentimental value, but I would just keep it locked away, you know, because it was the first one that I ever owned, and it's pink. So,
Of course, you
Awesome.
can't get rid of it now.
well, it's a Taurus, actually, a Taurus 40. And
I know
I'm actually
exactly what you're
I'm
talking about.
actually looking at getting a 9mm from Springfield, and what I really like about it is the multiple like safeties on it. Like, there's actually a grip safety, so you actually have to hold the gun properly for it to fire, which limits, you know, accidental firing quite a bit, because, you know, it has to be held
cool.
exactly right or it's not going to fire. Still, I mean, it's a gun. It's dangerous. Like, you know, don't leave it lying
But it's
around,
still safer
obviously.
than a lot of guns.
But,
It's
I
not
mean,
going to accidentally go off.
like the fact that, you know, I don't have to worry about my son's climbing on me while I'm concealed carrying, that he's just going to dig his toe in just the right way. He's a little monkey. Like, he literally will climb me like a tree. It's adorable, but it's also, you know, not the safest thing if I am concealed carrying. Another reason why I don't carry as often as I should. But when it comes down to it, I'm competent with a firearm. I go to the range. I mean, I haven't been since COVID, but I practice, because for me, it is about protecting myself and my family. And I think that if you're going to be a gun owner, and a responsible one, you also have to be responsible enough to know whether or not, if put in a situation to use your gun, you are capable of doing so or not. If it comes down to me or somebody else wanting to do harm to me, I will not hesitate. I hope to gods I don't believe in that I am never in a situation where I have to use my gun in self-defense.
There we go.
However, I will not hesitate, because hesitation will get you fucking dead. It is
Oh,
Absolutely.
Jenny says she'll take the 40 off your hands.
My battery
it is
low.
more dangerous to hesitate if you own a gun. You know, it actually puts you at higher risk of dying of gun violence if you're
So-
not actually going to follow
To
through
be
with it.
fair, I mean, I was trained in martial arts, so that is the same for any weapon. If you are trained to use a weapon, but you're not prepared to use it, don't train to use that
Shouldn't
weapon.
have it. Yeah.
You shouldn't have
I
it.
did martial arts.
If you don't think you could possibly use it, you're actually a danger to yourself having that weapon. I've had a flick knife pulled on me before, and when the person did it to me, I said straight out to them, you better be prepared to use that weapon, or I'm going to take it off you and shove it up your ass. And they folded the knife back up and put it away, because the fact of the matter is this: they weren't prepared to use it. I was trained in how to take the knife off them. If they were prepared to use it, there was no way I was going to run the fuck away. But if they're not prepared to use it, then I'm going to take the knife off them every single time, because they don't know how to use it. Or even if they do, they're not going to be out there to use it. I mean, it wasn't defense; they were threatening, but that was beside the point. They still weren't prepared to actually hurt somebody with it. This was a threat. And my threat was stronger. My threat was like, I will take it off you and I will shove it up your ass because you are fucking not hurting me.
But see, and that's another thing about, training and competency with firearms is making sure that people know that, yes, you have a right to this, but if you are not prepared to use it, you are putting yourself and your loved ones in danger by owning this. Because
apparently a lot of people are more likely to get shot with their own gun than anyone else.
Not only actually, because they hesitate during, a self-defense type issue, or because they turn the gun on themselves. And I mean, that is something that needs to be talked about if you're going to be a gun owner.
That's one statistic that I was not trying to avoid, but that's I know it's a touchy subject, but that does tie into gun violence in America in very, very high statistics. So you're right. If you own a gun, you are more likely to take your own life.
You need to know how to take care of it so that it is there when you need it, if you ever do need it. Like Jen, I trained in martial arts for 4 years. But because of my physical disability, I can no longer physically fight off an attacker. And with my history, I was never going to be victimized again. So I learned how to use a firearm.
I agree with you, Kitty. I don't think I could fight off an attacker now. But I mean, I was in my mid-20s when this happened, so I was still fairly young. And I'm like, I was grading off a black belt at the time, and I'm like, this stupid little idiot who is not going to be able to hurt me. I mean, it was a guy, but he was the same height as me, so I'm 5'8", so he's a short guy. So like, he's not going to hurt. I don't care. Sorry?
He's taller than me, I bet.
So he was not going to hurt me. I don't care. I realized technically he would have been stronger, but not. I was trained, so it makes a difference. I've sparred with people who are larger than me, and when you're trained properly, you can beat them if you know what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, how tall are you, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm 5'9".
See, I have taken down guys like bigger than like taller and bigger. Like I was scrappy as hell. Like I could get you down on the mat and then I could make you pass out with my legs. Like I could literally squeeze the air from you.
And that's one of the things when you learn martial arts, when you learn how to defend yourself,
so hard.
that they won't tell you. You're not going to know about this normally. But when I was trained in martial arts, one of the things you're taught when you're taught to defend yourself is the fight doesn't end once you knock that person over. You make sure they're not getting up again. Because
that's kind of like what I was taught. I actually studied martial arts myself, but it's part of my life I want to forget for unrelated reasons. But one of the things I was basically taught was if someone hits you once, turn the other cheek. But if the thought crosses your mind that they might do it again, it's not just a matter of knocking them over. You do have to like disable them to an extent and then get out of the situation.
It also life is situational. When I lived a long time ago, this happened like 20 years ago, when I lived in LA, I was told, don't go down this street. Don't ever go down this street. So like a tourist, I went down that street.
Of course you did.
These people pulled up in a Mustang and they were like, hey, are you... They said my real full name, and I looked at them and I said, nope. And I started running, and they let off shots. They let off shots that I'm just lucky they were bad shots. And I was by an elementary school that was at that was at recess, and the kids were so trained that the second they heard shots, it was like a flock of birds. They all started running towards the school, and this was in the middle of Los Angeles at 1:00 in the afternoon.
So one of the only times that I was ever actually in a fight and put my martial arts to the test was back, I was in high school, and this neighborhood kid had beat up my sister, this boy. And so I went over and was demanding an apology. I'm not going to lie, I did confront the guy, but, I didn't throw the first punch. And I said, you need to apologize to her and never lay a hand on her again. You are bigger than her. You are stronger than her. She's a girl. You've got no business, beating up a girl. And he's like, what are you going to do about it? Whore. And so I'm like, you don't want to pick a fight with me. Just apologize and don't touch her again. And it'll be fine. And he's like, you can suck my... And continued with some misogynistic language, and I'm like, you really don't want to do this? And he shoved me, and I'm like, you really don't want to do this? I'm gonna whip your ass. And he was like, no, you're not. And he throws a punch at me, and I deflected it. And so we're going, and I'm kind of doing my little deputy kind of thing for a bit. Like, I'm watching him, like, okay, this guy's gonna try to fight dirty. So what I did is I went to kick him, but I did it across his midsection, and I did it slow enough, knowing he'd try to grab my leg and overpower me. As soon as his hands grabbed my leg, I grabbed his shoulders, brought my knee across his chest, went down, and threw him over me. I didn't quite realize that there was a concrete pillar there, so his face smacked the concrete pillar, and he broke his nose in 3 places.
Well done.
So not only did he get his ass kicked in front of all of his friends, but then he ran in crying to his mom, this 17-year-old boy. She comes out, no, it gets better. She comes out to yell at me, and they're like, no. He hit her sister, and then he told her to suck her dick when she came over to ask for an apology. She's like, oh, so you're going to beat up on a girl now, are you? She took this 6-foot-tall, 17-year-old boy, bent him over her knee, and spanked him in front of everybody. And then she goes in and all of his CDs, and she's like, I played the goddamn rap music, and she snaps them all into pieces and makes them like, I don't ever have to fight again. That was great.
I remember
that was brilliant.
I had a. But I can't do that anymore. I physically am not capable of doing that anymore.
Oh my god, what a great story!
I used to talk a lot of shit in high school between being
to her kids.
Between being visibly
was talking spanking, and I was like, oh, okay.
So that wake up.
Oh yeah, we get kinky in here.
I used to get shit shot on.
Jeff, you're like
in high school.
Spanking. Please continue.
I used to get harassed a lot in high school because of being visibly intersexed, as you can imagine. There was one guy in high school who decided he was going to attack me from behind. Unfortunately, he did it by running up at me. So I heard him coming, so I just turned around and side-kicked him as hard as I could right in the solar plex, and he went down and didn't get up for 5 minutes.
Ooh.
And all his mates were standing around him, laughing the fuck at him, and I never got harassed physically. And the verbal crap that you get, but never threatened physically again in high school after that.
I actually had a guy come up on me like that once in high school, and I was not paying attention, and he came up, we had dated a little bit, and he came up and he smacked me on the ass, but he came at a running charge. I literally had a handprint bruise on my ass for 2 weeks because he lifted me up off the ground with that. Dude, I fucking punched him in the face afterwards. But the only other time that I actually had an altercation other than that was the weird kid. And I'm not one to judge. You do you. But this kid was weird. And we hung out and everything like that. I didn't judge. I was the weird goth chick that hung out with everybody. But he comes up behind me and gives me a bear hug. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then he fucking sinks his teeth into the meat of my shoulder, and he actually drew blood. And I'm like, the actual fuck. So
zombie apocalypse.
Twisted around and then donkey kicked, and I landed him right in the nuts. It's the only time I've ever kicked a guy there on purpose. But I mean, to be fair, he was literally going zombie on my shoulder. So because it wasn't sexy vampire.
He must have thought you tasted good or something.
Out of me.
I've only ever kicked one guy in the nuts, and that was somebody who threatened me when I was an adult. But in high school, there was a guy came up behind me, smacked me in the back of the head with a school book, and then ran past me, and I kicked him up the ass, and I broke his coccyx.
See, I didn't start physically fighting back against dudes until I was already an adult. Like when I met my daughter's dad, he was, trying to fool around with me, and then he went too far. Because he was like into some BDSM shit, and so was I, but apparently not as hardcore as he was. And then I did something he didn't like or something, and he slapped me in the face. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, fuck no." And I punched him right in his face. And this was the first day we met. Keep in mind, we now have a child together, so.
Apparently, Ox did 11 months for kicking a cop in the nuts.
Yeah.
Where I'm from,
I know what you mean.
They take you in an alley and beat you senseless out here. Most people wouldn't live to tell the story out here if you did that to a sheriff. Nowadays.
Sorry, Jenny, I'm not a switch. I'm solidly a submissive.
Kitty, I like your screen share there with your border and everything as a calligraphy writer. It's pretty cool having stuff like that, the fancy stuff.
Yeah, no, it's actually the software from UCAM 9. Like, I can change it. Like, I really like this butterfly one. And then, like, there's the little flowers and stuff.
Cool.
But I kind of liked this one. I was feeling this one today.
See, I'm going to need some help with my channel.
We've moved to self-defense from gun control, but I think they're related.
Stuff.
I mean, although, since we're having the gun control debate, I could always put this one on.
It's the attitude.
I love it. Please keep it.
Yeah.
This one's the camera, but then we can go with
gun control.
I'm a target now.
We're all targets now.
Even though I'm an expert shot from any distance, it doesn't matter. I already know, I was trained as a weapon close up, and anybody who's going to be an asshole in civilian life, I'd rather be right there in their face so I can see their fear in the first damn place.
The reality is,
do you guys think that there should be a mental assessment to get a gun?
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
I think so.
By a professional? By an actual professional?
That was where I was going to go with that question before.
If we're gonna do mental assessments, though, it should not be one and done. There need to be recurring ones every couple of years or so, and as needed. Like if somebody calls you in, if they call in a wellness check on you, and something's mentioned about mental health risk, like suicide risk or something, there should also be. Do
you have a gun license? Check these people up. They might need their gun license revoked. For example, with car licenses in Australia, if you have a major mental health problem or some other medical problem that might cause you a problem with driving, your license will be revoked for a given amount of time until you prove that you're safe to drive again. This should be the same for guns.
That'll never happen, though, because cars aren't a constitutionally protected right, but guns are.
So is the fact that it was made a constitutional right the problem in the US?
Well, the problem is that cars didn't exist when the Constitution was written.
Or they would have been in there.
Exactly.
By that logic, we should apply that to guns.
And in many states...
The gun that wasn't invented at the time shouldn't be covered as a right.
Agreed.
Well, this is the thing.
So you can go ahead and have your musket.
In many states,
anyone's allowed a musket.
Hey, black powder
for stealing a horse.
Black powder is awesome. It's fun.
So you're allowed a cannon and a musket and any weapon that was available when the Constitution was written.
I
don't know that I really want people having access to cannons. I mean, that's
militias would have access to cannons.
I would like access to a cannon. There's a lot of things I could do with a cannon.
I would rather somebody had a Civil War cannon than had an automatic rifle.
Honestly, though, I think
at least cannons take time to load.
I think that
Oh, go ahead, Katie.
No, I was going to say, I think that it shouldn't just be reserved for gun owners. I honestly think we need nationalized health care in this country.
Definitely.
And mental health checkups should be yearly regardless. It should be covered because there's more than just mass shootings that happen that could be prevented if people have proper mental health screenings.
I feel like
So-
that also
Oh
about.
yeah, there's all kinds
And
of
the mental
abuses
health would
going
also tie
on.
into the physical health because the brain and the body are connected. You know, I suffer from, I have actually 3 different major mental health diagnoses going on at once. And I know that those exacerbate, I have severe GI issues as well. And I know that they're aggravated by stress. Like that runs in my family. So
Stress will age you. Stress is a killer.
I mean, with my CRPS, like stress actually aggravates it. I also suffer from cataplexy. So whenever I feel a strong emotion, my hands will actually get numb. And if I start laughing, like deep belly laughing where I am crying, like I will literally become temporarily paralyzed in my arms and legs.
Oh wow.
terrifying.
it
Holy shit.
Actually,
Hold on, Kitty. What is that called?
cataplexy.
Because I get that too. What the hell is that called?
It's
Cataplexy?
cataplexy. It's
Is
a
that-
cataplexic attack.
Is that from
basically-
breathing?
No, okay. So cataplexy can be caused by MS. It can also be caused by narcolepsy and a few other things. But essentially, like the last time I had the attack, my son, who is not fully potty trained yet, I was over at my mother's house with my sister, and I was giving her a back massage. So I'm on the floor, kind of like sitting down on her as I work on her back. Well, my sister never had kids, never wanted kids, and poop is not something she does. Well, my son had pooped in his pull-up rather than saying he needed to go to the toilet. So I was in the middle, like covered in lotion. I was like, "Hey, Mom, can you take care of it?" And she's like, "Yeah, no problem." So my son, at that point, decided to literally plop his butt right next to my sister and take his pull-up off. My sister, like,
I'm sorry, that's so
was
funny.
like freaking the fuck out. She's screaming for my dad. Like, Dad, I start laughing. I'm crying. Like, I go paralyzed. I can't move my arms or legs. I'm pinning her to the floor with her head still next to my son's like poop covered butt. And I'm fully aware while it's going on. Like, it's not like a seizure. And I'm apologizing to her. I'm sorry, I can't move, I can't do anything. Like, but my arms and legs are just dead. So like they're dead weight, and it goes as long as I was crying. And the more she freaked out, the more I'd start laughing and apologizing, and I would laugh even more. And it makes me a horrible person, I know. But so I found it
No, you're
hilarious.
not. You're just someone with a sense of humor that's a little different than the rest of ours.
Parenting.
And-
It's just parenting.
So then
Exactly.
I stopped laughing. Within like a minute or two, everything
Yeah.
was back to normal. I was able to peel myself up off the floor. But yeah, I was like belly laughing, tears rolling down my face, like laughing so hard it hurt. Like it takes laughing that hard for me to go completely numb. But if I laugh like decently hard and I'm walking, like my legs will just go and I'll go straight down to the floor. Or if I get really upset, like anxious or agitated or angry, like it gets hard for me to do fine motor stuff because my hands will get really numb. And we haven't figured out exactly the cause of my cataplexy, because as far as we know, I don't have MS. But from the support groups that I'm in for the condition that I do have, a lot of them end up developing MS, and correlation doesn't equal causation, but it is still something that I have to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
So it's also possible
Right.
that I have
Pre-symptomatic.
narcolepsy, like who knows? But I don't like randomly fall asleep, so I'm not sure that that's it. But yeah, so the cataplexy is definitely an interesting thing. And like the first time it happened, like it was a little scary, but then I learned that, okay, if I laugh, I need to sit down if like I find something funny before I fall down. But the full paralysis, like the whole shebang, the whole 9 yards, which goes back to guns, because the whole 9 yards comes from using the whole 9 yards of bullets.
Absolutely. World War II.
But yeah, like the first time that happened, it was a little scary. But now I understand, and I can, work around it. And I'm fortunate that there aren't a lot of things that really like make me like laugh like that. And if it's just like normal laughing, it's just a little bit of numbness, and like that.
Terrible, that's terrible. He just said in the live chat, I'm not sure what causes cataplexies, but I have a feline.
Oh, I'm getting a hi-hat. Oh, I'm getting a hi-hat.
Oh, fuck that.
We're gonna
I hate
I
everybody.
we're gonna have to
Oh,
we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Way too much.
And
We're
I
gonna have
thought my
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and I thought my little pun about gun control was something we should aim for. Was a bad pun.
Hey, look,
gonna-
I called
I
the
hate
stream
everyone.
Shooting for Justice. The pun started before you lot got here.
We're gonna have to wrap it up because Purple's stream starts in an hour and a half.
Yeah, got an hour and a half yet.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wrap it up. Does anybody have anything to shill?
I mean, I'll just repeat what I said before we went live. I mean, I mentioned the lack of education also being part of the gun problem. So I think part of getting a good handle on gun control would be getting a good handle on stupid control.
It's a multi-pronged attack.
You may
need
either
better
be
healthcare.
idiot
You need
or
better
you may bear
education.
arms. You may not do both.
Okay.
I like that. I like that.
I can't even attribute that to myself. My mother said that on Facebook a while ago.
Yeah.
She posted it in response to an incident where somebody was told they couldn't dine in at McDonald's because COVID, and their response was to shoot the clerk.
All right.
That's awful.
So yeah, and my mom's closing remark was, "You may either be an idiot or you may
Very
bear
funny.
arms, not do both."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just reading yesterday about an incident where this woman went into a Waffle House and they wouldn't serve her because she didn't have a mask. So
oh my
she
god, I
came
think
back-
I heard about
came back
that.
with the
And
gun
of course
and
it was a
she felt
Waffle House. That just tells you it was a redneck.
until they gave her her order.
How much did she get arrested, or did she get her food?
Well, she got her food then, but the cops went and arrested her a couple hours later.
So at least she got to eat her waffles. Okay.
Wow.
They want guns to protect themselves, but they don't want to protect themselves by wearing a fucking mask for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, there's a double standard. Also, there's a double
Could
standard
it-
with
could it just-
kids in cages at the border of Mexico and America.
Which are still there.
Because,
Which are
oh my
still
God,
there.
Obama's the one who built those damn things,
it-
but yet for some odd reason, Remington isn't responsible for fucking school shootings.
Could the explanation for the problem be a lot more simpler than anything we've been talking about? Could it just be that your country has a lot of fucking stupid people in it?
Well,
And they're
that's what I'm
angry.
getting at. We need
No,
to get
it's by
idiot
design.
control.
Angry, stupid
Well, it
people.
doesn't make it stupid.
The
Children's
politicians
fact.
are constantly, I mean, it goes back to education. Like right now, the funding for schools only comes from property taxes, which means that in the wealthy areas where property taxes are high, you have much better education. But in poor or middle income areas,
Mhm.
then you have much worse education. Honestly,
Yep.
one thing that could make the whole country better as a whole, and would have sweeping changes, would be if we actually funded schools more and equally, give them the funding they need, not make them actually just try to scrape by on whatever scraps they get, and have it be federally funded completely so that everybody gets a good education, and then you will have a more informed populace and a more informed electorate, and then we can elect politicians that will put forth
Yeah.
the changes that we need for a better country.
I
And it
totally
all goes back
agree.
to education.
Properly
Absolutely.
funding the schools would resolve a host of issues.
Our schools
Absolutely.
in Australia are still state funded.
Well, that would also have to put an end to. I mean, my mom was one of these parents. Like they go in and they keep voting no to increase the school budget because of some ridiculous wacko belief they have about the education system.
See, school budgets in Australia are based on population density. So the more students there are at a school, the bigger the budget the school gets to. So they're getting given so much
That
per
makes sense.
student that is there, basically, and it's standardized. X amount goes to.
Yeah.
Of course, government-based schools get more money than private schools, but the government still supports private schools to a certain extent, because there's an X amount that goes per student, and then there's so what happens is the amount that goes to each school based per student from the government is exactly the same, regardless of whether you're a private or a government-based school. But government-based schools get X number amount on top of that base amount because they have to, because it's government funded. It's not privately funded.
Yeah.
So your level of funding is always, there's this baseline that everyone gets, and it's based per student, and then you get the fee on top, which is for government schools ends up still based on how many students are at the school. and of course, private schools have to do that via raising private funds through fees
That's a
and
better
stuff.
way, a more egalitarian way to do it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that you don't have as many stupid people in your country.
You also don't have
because of
people
it.
minding going to government-based schools because the government-based schools still have funding and still offer good services for people.
Andrew, I'm stupid now. Jesus Christ, Jenny in the live chat.
I saw that.
To be fair, though, I think the reason we do have gun
We have
control is we've got a lot of
I'm not even
stupid
getting a
people
live
in our
chat.
country. So
All right, we're gonna have to.
We're
wrap
gonna
it
wind
Okay,
up.
Shilling begin.
Well, we were supposed to be in the shilling phase.
one,
Yeah,
One-
let's
one
get
quick
into
thing.
shilling ourselves.
I'm trying.
Can I just do one quick? Can I just do one quick thing quickly? A little bit of trivia for people. Anybody know why the National Rifle Association actually supported an open carry ban in California in 1967? Anybody know that?
For the Black Panther Party?
Because of
Exactly.
the riots in LA.
Yep.
No, Black Panther.
Yes, there is
got it in one,
definitely
the
a
Black
racial
Panther Party.
aspect of things as well.
Yeah,
I
know that
knew
one.
somebody was going to go
I-
there. I thought about being the one to go there. I decided not to. But yeah, I knew it was going to become a race question too.
Well, while we're in you,
Yeah.
Jeff, what have you got coming up?
Taking a pretzel.
I got a Asterix on Sunday with Noodle. 1 p.m. UK time. That's silly early for Americans, unfortunately. But I'm trying to think. I'm not sure whether I'm on Six Pack later today or not. I think I might be because as I've acquired Vegemite, and I think Chris wants to get my reaction.
Yeah, I
So,
think you might be on because of the topic that's happening tonight, and my brain's a bit mucked.
I'm not.
at the
I can't
moment,
remember what the topic is actually, but so I might be on there. I think I'm due to be on there. I can't remember honestly, but
Yeah.
other than that, I got Asterix on mine. I'll probably be on Media Musings on One Rings channel on Sunday as well.
Yeah.
So that's about it at the moment.
Awesome. Harmonica Man, what do you got coming up?
Well, on Saturdays I got live with the Harmonica Man, where I talk about music and especially harmonica, and try to get some pros on talking about what they know and teaching a little bit and sharing some stories about on the road and what they've experienced. And on Sundays I have a new show called well, Jesus Christ, it's a new show, so let me see if I can remember. Shedding Mysticism. Yeah, that's it.
That's Sunday night your time, isn't it?
And I'm trying to get people. Yes, it is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So
9
if
a.m.
anybody's got something they would like to demystify, basically for what the colloquialism of the general population says, as opposed to scientific data, then please come on and debunk myths with me and have a good time. Foul language and alcohol is very welcome.
Well, that's on
And
everybody.
other than that, I'm doing some just some videos with a compilation of many people about Black History Month here in America as the pioneers of jazz and blues music.
Awesome.
So that's pretty much what I got going on.
Awesome.
Kitty?
Well, quick question for Randy. Are you going to touch on the origin of hipsters and like where that started with that one jazz musician, the white guy? I'm trying to
He
remember.
touched on that before. It was cool.
Okay. Well, I didn't see.
No, it's a joke. It was a joke because you said hipsters.
Okay. But
You will have
I didn't know if
to
you had touched
email
on it
me
or
so
not.
I know what the hell you're talking about.
Okay. Are you on Twitter?
Yes.
I could totally talk to you about the
Magley
big band
at-
era.
_I.
Okay. Then I will.
I don't know
touch
too
base-
much about hipsters. I'm pretty much just a blues jazz man from old-fashioned days.
Well,
Yeah, no, it
you and
started with.
So
the
go
jazz
ahead and get a hold of me
musician.
if you got something to contribute. I will help. I will
I
help.
will. as far as me, I am actually going to be on a stream tomorrow. It is a fundraising stream to help somebody out that they're short on their rent, and just trying to help somebody in the community. I was asked if I would take part in it. I don't have the link to the stream just yet, but when I do, I will be sharing it on Twitter. And then I actually think I might do my first actual video on my channel if I can, get Chris to teach me how to edit it. I was actually going to do a start to finish of how I make my mask. Like it's like it takes like 2 hours. I'm going to try to condense it down to like 10 or 15 minutes. Which is where the editing comes in. But yeah, I am planning on doing that soon.
If you need any help, Kitty, let us know.
Yeah,
I thought you were taking the Shannon Q approach. That you were going to appear on everybody else's channel and wait till you had 1,000 subscribers before you release a video.
I mean, that might not be a bad idea, but no. Like, I don't know. I just think it would be something fun to do, and I've been meaning to do it for a while. Just like I've been meaning to actually make content, but I've been taking all my free time to make masks, and I figured this way I can kind of do both. Make some masks, record it, and then show how it's done, so to speak. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else I have coming on. Nothing's standing out to me where I've been asked to be on, but check my Twitter because I always get tagged in things. And if I'm going to be on something, I try to always share the stream beforehand. Aside from that, wash your hands, wear a mask, socially distance, don't be a dick. My sign off at least until the end of this
Corona
apocalypse. But
apocalypse. I've never heard that one before. I'm gonna start stealing it.
I mean, it really does seem like it in the U.S. that
Oh yeah,
is a fucking apocalypse.
well, you're in Florida, so even more so. I mean, my God, you literally live in a petri dish.
Yeah, well, and the fact that our numbers have been fudged for a long time thanks to DeFuckus, Governor DeFuckus.
More like Governor DeCuntis.
Yeah, well, it's still, just be a decent person. Like, wear a fucking mask. It's not going to kill you. Like, COVID.
Oh, I've had to say that at my job all the time.
I literally know somebody that, they are 30 years old. They tested positive for COVID. And 2 days later, they're like, I'm not feeling so good. And then they start projectile vomiting blood. And now they are in the fucking ICU on life support. It is serious.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate to bring up COVID every time, but it's still such a pressing issue, and so many people are seriously.
It ties into everything now,
and it fucking breaks my fucking heart. Like, I've sold hundreds upon hundreds of masks for people, given them away for free. I'm trying.
Yeah.
And if using my voice to say just wear a fucking mask, don't be a fucking moron. Like, if it helps just one person, not be an idiot. Like, please
don't be an idiot.
Yeah, it's an issue because people haven't taken it seriously. If last spring everybody had worn a mask and followed all the recommendations, we would have never lost as many people as we have now.
We might actually be like back to relatively normal if people had just listened and followed the rules. I swear to God, if I had I always say if I had a nickel. Right now I'm saying if I had a fraction of a penny for every time I've had to tell somebody, you need to wear a mask, when I'm at work, I wouldn't need my job. I could retire. It's ridiculous why we have to tell people.
This is a COVID mask from our date.
500,000.
Oh, I doubt she's that ugly.
We are at 500,000 dead Americans almost.
Yeah,
it's law here. It's law here,
and it is horrible.
It's law here, and people still do not wear masks.
So
So
if everybody had taken it seriously last March and April, we could probably be on a par with where Australia is now.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
head of
Japan.
population.
They didn't shut down at all. They didn't shut down at all. They just socially distanced, washed their fucking hands, and wore masks, and they did fine.
Oh, we did shut down. No, we did.
That's the thing. Like, the more Eastern cultures are a lot bigger on, like, community, family. There isn't so much every man for himself.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm in shutdown
really
at the
what it comes
moment,
down
Kitty,
to.
because we have one case in my state, and the area where that case happened, which was the major metropolitan area of Perth, complete lockdown for the last week. You're only supposed to leave your house to go if you have to desperately go to the shops, basically, is it. And then you have to wear a mask, you have to socially distance, you have to do all of that sort of thing. People who at work have to wear a mask all the time. We come out of that at 6 o'clock tonight, but even when we come out of that, we're still on other restrictions. You still have to wear a mask for certain things, and you still have to do this. That there's a whole heap of rules that are still going to apply for the next week or two before we get back to some form of normalcy. And that is fine, because that's made sure that instead of getting 30 or 40 cases, we got one.
Can you adopt me? Like, I'll move to Australia. Like, Florida's already the Australia of the US, so I'm used to the flora and fauna wanting to fucking kill me.
I love
So,
Florida.
I don't know. I think
your-
Australia is a lot more
your
civilized than
systems are
Florida at this point.
crazy.
I mean, for God's
You're
sake,
not
there's
wrong.
a new Florida man every hour.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not that we're getting into that
I've
tangent
already
again.
wrangled an alligator. A crocodile can't be too much different.
Sinus.
Like, that's a
Jesus.
true story. I will
Yeah.
save that for your next stream that I'm on.
I am
will
so
tell half the
hungry
time
for
I
alligator
wrangled an
lately.
alligator.
Have you got anything else happening, Sinus?
For once, no. I have today and tomorrow off. I'm not really all that active on streams, so I mean, I'll pop up in side chats here and there. Mostly, you can find me on Twitter bitching about the idiots at my job. So that will probably resume again starting Saturday morning. Hopefully nothing too crazy pops off at my job. I mean, at this point, I've survived murder attempts. I had somebody. I was walking to my car when we were talking about the mask issue. I mean, we actually have like paperwork for logging people who don't wear masks because it's so common. People are so stupid. We had to lower the number of strikes from 3 to 2 before you're out. And one time I was leaving my job for the day. I'd worked a day shift on the weekend. I'm walking to my car, and these idiots sitting outside say to me, "Hey, are you a Democrat or Republican?" I turned around. I said, "First of all, I'm a woman. Why would I be a Republican? I have some self-respect out there." And he said, "Oh, that's why you're wearing a mask. It's all a hoax." I said, "You know what? You're crazy. You need to take your medicine. Have a nice day." At that point, I was off the clock. I say what I want. So, but yeah, honestly, the only thing I really have going on is my Twitter page. I'm a lot more active on there. But I mean, if anybody has any streams that they'd like me to comment on any given topics, then by all means, shoot me a DM.
We
I'm
love
always
having
happy
you
to join any panel.
Yeah.
I got nothing better to do with my life other than work. I need to do something other
That
than
sounds
work.
like all of
I
us.
watch
We've
my
got nothing
boyfriend
better
play
to do with
video
our
games.
lives.
I want to go to sleep. Like, for real.
Congratulations. Do you want a cookie?
Perp, what do you got going on?
Purple, yeah.
Yeah, I just do my random chat streams Wednesdays at noon and Thursdays at midnight. So I'll be going on in about an hour here, and with increasing frequency, you can find me on the shills on Friday nights.
Awesome. Don't forget.
That's probably not something I'd be in anytime soon.
Yeah.
Dick Dawson don't
Don't
like me.
forget to watch Perps in just over an hour on Perps channel. If you want to shove the link in, Perp, please do if you've got it set up.
Yeah, I've got a place card. Let me just pull that up.
Yeah. As far as Will and I go, we'll be back here next Friday doing another What the Fuck show. I'm not sure what
That's Thursday for all the people who live
next
in the
Thursday.
past.
Sorry,
AKA America.
it was Friday morning for me. My brain's Thursday evening for those of you in American side who deal with freedom units instead of metric.
Freedom units.
Yeah,
I love
freedom
saying
unit.
freedom unit.
I urge you to bust a
fucking-
mythology with me also.
Tomorrow night, my time, which is Saturday night, my time, which is midday for people in the UK and morning for those of you in the US. I will be doing another Stump Gen. At some point next week, Probably, unlike the What the Fuck show, when we do round table shows, which is what I'm about to just talk about, I don't have a set time frame for those. We're trying to keep What the Fuck show as on in always this time slot, or at least very close to it, so people know when it's going to be. But the round the table discussions will happen when they do. I'm hoping to have one next week, which I have to have a talk with Kitty about, because we've been talking about doing a particular topic. Another thing that came up from last Monday's round the table discussion.
Man, that was just a grab bag for content.
It really was. So hopefully we can jump onto that next week, and we'll have a roundtable discussion about domestic abuse. And
What did
surviving it.
when are you thinking of having that? I would like to join that if possible.
I will probably create a group for those of us who have been in domestic abuse situations, so that we can organise a time that suits all of us to have it. So I'll drag you both into that. I just haven't done it yet because I've been so busy.
Where would this group be though? Is that like on Discord, or because I don't use Discord?
That'll be on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Because I've got that's definitely something I would like to be involved in.
Yeah. So there will be that discussion next week. I will watch my Twitter for when that's going to happen. Aside from that, what have you got happening, babe?
We haven't decided for the title of next week's stream, so it's the yet to be named stream. But it will be exciting because we'll be there.
And it'll be a what the fuck moment again.
I could do what the fuck why the US hasn't converted to the metric system.
Oh, we could talk about metric and imperial system. That would be an interesting discussion, yeah. Well, we could talk about the fact that American...
drug dealers can use the metric system, so can the rest of us.
Oh, and I always
my eyes on you. I'm gonna beat you in the shine off.
I moisturize.
And Jenny wants in on a metric show.
Oh,
she said in the chat.
Yeah, I always forget to plug Sci-Strike Movie Night, which is Friday nights at 10 Central Time. That Jenny Morgan and I are generally on that too.
Awesome.
I'll have to get back to being on one at some point. I just don't seem to have the time at the moment because it's the wrong time of day for me. On a Saturday anyway.
And keep that comment to myself.
You know, Jenny said that she's also waiting for me to start my new makeup techniques show. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see it.
If you hadn't noticed.
Your makeup's always on point, Kitty.
Thank you.
Okay, so
if you hadn't noticed, I only put Lippy on.
Purple's ready.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, you look like Lictocopatris, Queen of Egypt.
Thank you all for joining us. This has been absolutely awesome. Thank you, Harmonica Man, Purple, Sunnies, Jeff, and Kitty. You're all amazing. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Everybody who put up with the fact that we had technical difficulties right in the middle. Screw you, OBS. Anybody who's watching this again later and actually sat through the technical difficulties again the second time, thank you guys as well. Thank you to everybody who's subbed to the channel, who follows us, who partakes in all this. You're all amazing. Love you all very much. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.